Ms. Garcia and then Mr. Wood.
Thank you. I'll start off by thank you, Mr. De Leon, for his multiple meetings. He's been very generous with this time as we discuss this bill. I believe the 50-50-50 goals and beyond that are attainable, and they're good for my community. I have an underrepresented community that's strangled by 6 freeways. I have a rail yard. And I believe that the 50-50-50 creates an opportunity. We've been waiting for some of the stuff to come into my district, and while we do have cleaner air, it's been a little bit slower. But I think that we have a real opportunity to start to create additional mechanisms. So when you talk about DG, I think there's an opportunity as this bill moves forward, and I know that the Pro Tem's engaging in this discussion, he's engaged with me, of how do we start to look at maybe DG and limiting it to my backyard to incentivize it there where maybe a charge point isn't coming in because of economies of scales, and maybe that's where the utilities could come in along the way. When we talk about efficiency, I think that's where we have the biggest opportunity and what my district would benefit the most. I go home on a regular basis to hear about our high energy rates and how they keep going up. But I also go home to a reality that I have had the means to have that efficiency in my own household and see the drastic reduction in my utility bills right now and the savings that are happening there. And so as I look at energy as a whole, I have a savings there that might offset other increases along the way. And so I believe that the 50% efficiency is something that's going to be great for my district, something that's needed in my district, and something that's going to start to address an issue that I go home to on a regular basis to hear about these energies. So I see a real opportunity here. I just want to make sure, and we've had the discussion, and it's more of a statement just for the record, and I know we're talking about how do we discuss this during the our recess, the reality of what apartments look like in my district. And when I have discussions and I bring it up here, we think about these big units. In your head, think about what you're thinking about, multi-family homes, and you're thinking about 50-plus units oftentimes, maybe bigger. Well, to give you a reality, in my district, I only have 30 places in the whole 500,000 constituents that are 50-plus units. But I have 14,000 that are 4 units or less. Those are 14,000 that are 4 units, renters, all disadvantaged community renters, and they pay their own bills, and so the landlord has no incentive to take advantage of this. And so how do we start to incentivize a landlord? Maybe he rents the rooftop to the utilities or to a third party, and the benefits go to the person paying the utility, the actual low-income tenants, right? So I think there's a real opportunity as we start to look at our communities, and we're having that discussion, and so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank your staff because they're committed, whether it's through this vehicle or another vehicle. I think one of the things that was said earlier that was unfair was that this bill doesn't do this and it's too limited in scope, but I think it's dismissive of the working groups in both of our houses that are looking at the various issues, and maybe it's not carved into one bill, but I think there's a package that's being negotiated amongst the houses that different working groups, our cap and trade monies are, that we have right now. And I think we're going to get to something that's more comprehensive and create an overall package that's there. But I do want to make that clear that we need to think about apartment units that are much smaller, where the tenant is paying the utilities, and we need to incentivize that landlord. And it's not a bad word or a bad thing to incentivize those landlords and let them make they're small business owners, and let them make a profit too along the way.
Mr. Wood? Yes, and thank you, Senator. I want to thank you for your leadership in bringing this issue to the forefront and all of the work that you're putting into this. I appreciate that. I will be supporting the bill today.
Thank you.
I, like Mr. Dolly over here, represent a huge swath of Northern California, a very rural district. Yeah. So the issues around biomass are big to me as well, because it provides renewable energy at baseline power. We don't have to rely on the sun to be out to have biomass. We don't need to rely on the wind. And the challenges around technologies that are existing like that is that it costs more to produce those, because there are incentives for so many of the other programs that we can't enjoy with things like biomass. So I would hope that, along with, I also represent an area that has a huge power source in geothermal energy. Once again, geothermal energy, little higher cost, but renewable in the way it's being done by our ability to re-inject water into the wells to create additional steam. Once again, baseline power, and I would hope that as we go along that those don't get forgotten, and that because they provide really good jobs. It's renewable energy. No one contends that that it isn't. And I would hope that as we consider the big picture, that we look at those issues as well. And I would also like to echo the concerns I have around forest management, because as Mr. Daly said, when we talk about greenhouse gas emissions and the challenges when we have large forest fires, and we will have large forest fires because we do pretty much every year, there's a lot of greenhouse gases that go up there. And if we could manage our forests better, creating the fuel for biomass, it would be helpful on multiple levels, and also increasing water, because healthier forests produce more water for us in the long run. So those are my concerns. I would also just ask, because we hear from our individual colleagues as we discuss bills. There are things that are noted in the analysis. It says the author and the committee may wish to consider, and some of those are really around kind of updates, reporting. I think the fear is that you give this and it goes away to CARB, and we don't see it, we don't know what's going on, and pretty soon we're having the challenge of our constituents wondering what we're up to. So that oversight, that reporting back, I think is a big deal to a lot of folks, even those who are in super strong support of your bill. So with that, I just appreciate your leadership and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you much. Thank you.
I just wanted to say I want to thank the author for his passion, his willingness to call together many different policy minds to craft what I think is visionary policy, and with working with some of the folks who are on the edge of support and try to bring them over. Obviously, there's a long list of big issues that the author will have to grapple with to bring together the support. The oversight issue, the clarification of the paths that CARB might take on fuel reduction, the issues with the utilities on DG and on banking of contracts. All of those are important things, and the author has, I think, set up a good stakeholder group working on those issues. I want to thank his witnesses. And I want to give you a perspective, I think, of trying to think about how we'll look back on this. I can tell you, because there were previous iterations of this debate, and many of the same specters and boogeymen were used to try to dissuade the legislature from taking on a visionary policy. And despite those charges, our economy is strong, and I would say that our economy is stronger for being willing to make the changes that also helped our environment. And I strongly feel that years from now we will want to wrestle with what we did about a very big problem that was going to affect the world and affect our communities: climate change. How many people have to get a respiratory disease for our lifestyle? How many people in low-lying areas have to move? How many millions of people have to be transported, and how much suffering and poverty comes from that? And I think we will ask ourselves, what were we willing to do? What challenges were we willing to face to make sure that our buying habits are in step with our values? And that's really, I think, what this is all about. Make sure our energy mix and our transportation choices are in step with our values and help job growth in this state. And so I am supporting this. I have asked the author to flag and work on several pieces of this, as we've articulated, and I just would ask you if you'd like to close.
Thank you much, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for your indulgence, Mr. Vice Chair, as well as colleagues of the committee, and I do really appreciate the dialogue. Wildfires. Obviously, wildfires have been ravaging, Northern California as well as Southern California, to a tune in the last decade, $4 billion. In the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, from our general fund dollars, we have spent or wasted $2 billion because of wildfires. And I don't know if it's going to get any better. It most likely is going to get worse for the state of California unless things change with regards to climate. A tremendous amount of money that otherwise we could be investing in our public schools, higher education, those who are developmentally disabled. So wildfires, no doubt, has been on my mind also, too. With the issue with regards to accountability, transparency, oversight with regards to CARB. Let me reiterate and underscore to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that my door is open, as well as my staff are open to all of you as well to accept any suggestions that within reason, also to at the same time as we move constructively. I think I said before, I've had my challenges as well with regards to CARB, and you have to fight and you have to move forward. Several of my bills who have now been codified into law were challenged by the good folks at CARB. And I continue to fight, move forward with my measure. And as a result, they are law today. So I clearly understand. And it's the balance of powers between the executive branch and the legislative branch. And I, in no form, way, or shape, irrespective of the FUD, F-U-D, the fear and uncertainty and doubt, this acronym, that is being perpetuated by the opposition. I can still work very closely with my colleagues constructively to make sure we do have real keen oversight, to make sure goals are being implemented. They're measurable, they're quantifiable, that you can see, are we on the right pathway? If we're not on the right pathway, what exit ramps do we have to make the modification necessary? Irrespective of one's political party or ideology, I think we all want the same thing. We want clean air, we want clean water for our generation, for our current generation, generations to come, but we also want economic sustained growth. But the reality is we need to reduce our carbon output. That is a reality that we're facing, because part of the cost of doing business in California has been billions of dollars on healthcare costs and emergency room visits by children, our children, in Northern California as well as Southern California, but in particular in the Fresno, Central Valley, Kern County area, where they have some of the worst air quality in the country. Mr. Chair, one thing I just want to add, and I want to add it so it's on the record, so it's very clear. This came up last week, and perhaps I didn't want to get into a thesis with regard to the difference between what your utility rate is and your utility bill is. But according to the United States Energy Information Administration, the EIA, California, with regards to energy expenditures per capita, we're at 46. We're almost near the bottom at 46. The difference between what your rate is and between what your bill is. Because at the end of the day, what counts is your bill. What the ratepayer, what the consumer, what our constituents open up that bill and they say how much they're paying out of pocket to turn the light on and off, to turn on the air conditioner and to turn it off, to turn the heater on and turn the heater off. Interestingly, Texas, and I have the methodology, the empirical data here, so it's not and it's not paid by the solar industry, or it's not paid by geothermal or wind or no forth. It's scientific right here. I just want to make sure. Texas is at number 5. In fact, per capita energy expenditure in Texas is $5,983 annually. Number 5, Texas. Number 4 is Louisiana. And number 3 is Wyoming, and that big oil state, North Dakota, is actually number 2 at $10,049. California is almost near the bottom at $3,589. What counts, my friends, is your bill. We have used, or the opposition has used, the utility rate to confuse, colleagues. But Rate is one thing because of the policies of this legislative body, and what Ms. Garcia made reference to, which is very important, is how you reduce your energy load through energy efficiency that actually keeps more money in the pocket. At the end of the day, it's about keeping more money in the pocket, cleaning up our air, and creating economic growth, jobs for the state of California, for Californians, not for Texans or anyone else. So with that, Mr. Chair, thank you so very much for your indulgence, Mr. Vice Chair. And again, colleagues, I look forward to continuing these conversations, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Second.
The motion is due pass as amended to appropriations by Christina and by Ms. Garcia and Mr. Wood. Roll call, please. That's right. It is. It is just like Madonna in my world.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dally? Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Hadley? Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty? McCarty, aye. Rendon? Stone? Wood? Wood, aye. Scott, 4, needs 5.
It has 4 votes, needs 5. There's 2 members absent. We'll leave the roll open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Senator Wesso, the much suffering, patient Senator Wesso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I guess transparency is important. I guess every point was made, which is good for the debate. But I'd like to start by accepting the proposed amendments on page 6 of the analysis. SB 189 would create the Committee on Maximizing Jobs and Economic Growth, a blue ribbon committee of sorts that would help to eliminate silos in the state that often impede the state's ability to make policy decisions that get to improving the economy and also reducing greenhouse gases. This committee that would be proposed on this bill will consist of experts in the fields of economics, finance, and public policy. They will advise state agencies tasked with implementing greenhouse gas emission reduction and energy efficient policies, and hopefully this will lead to changes in policies that will get to adopting those practices in the state that will help reduce greenhouse gases and create jobs. California is the location of over 40,000 businesses serving advanced energy markets. California was number 1 in total advanced energy investment and number 1 in electric vehicle sales. It is important to continue this job creation trend and capitalize on the economic potential with help of experts in the field. This bill will help create that expert group and hopefully would lead to recommendations that will come to the legislature for us to act on how to improve our economy and help to reduce greenhouse gases. I'd like to ask for your support for this bill today. Thank you.
Thank you. Witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? To the committee. Motion by Garcia, second by McCarty. And I would just add that since we have talked so much about CARB oversight, that this is a great bill that will help provide some of that oversight.
Yes.
And has an aye recommendation. This is due pass as amended to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Assemblymember Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Dally? Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Hadley? Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty? Aye. McCarty, aye. Rendon? Stone? Wood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you.